So once you set up your bedding, you pour the worms on top, and then you leave the lid off and the lights on for an hour, and they're all going to crawl down into the bedding.
These New Yorkers are learning how to turn their food scraps into soil using an indoor compost bin, a plastic or wood container filled with roughly 1,000 red wiggler worms.
The system here is based on disposable coffee cups and plastic bags. Composting is a really, really great way to reduce the amount of garbage that you make.
Carrie Pulverman is the compost project manager for the Lower East Side Ecology Center, a not-for-profit organization that runs community-based recycling and compost projects in New York City. The center has been holding these free classes since 2003. Pulverman noticed a spike in attendance a couple of years ago.
The first class had about 30 people, and then consistently after that, it was about 50. And it was hard to sometimes find a room that was big enough to fit all the people who wanted to come.
According to the New York Department of Sanitation, food scraps account for about 12% of the garbage generated in American households, and in New York City, that figure is close to 20%. Food scraps buried in landfills generate methane, a potent greenhouse gas that contributes to climate change. For people who want to compost their food scraps in urban centers, like New York City, where most residents lack any outdoor space, the red wigglers provide a convenient solution.
When you're ready to feed your bin, you put the food under the bedding, and the worms eat it, digest it through their body, and the compost is their manure. After about 3 or 4 months, your bin is full of compost and ready to harvest out your compost. Put new bedding in, and you can just keep the process going in there. You don't ever need to buy new worms.
Indoor compost bins have their limits. No meat or dairy products, and nothing oily. And an unbalanced compost bin can cause problems that would make anyone squeamish.
Learning to compost usually has a few mistakes, fallbacks along the way. There can be odor and pest problems with an indoor compost bin, just like any kind of compost bin. However, if you care for your bin and manage it correctly, you can avoid all of that.
Problems aside, what makes many potential composters squirm is living in close quarters with 1,000 worms.
Adults have the most anxiety about this. A lot of people think it's really cool and it's neat and they want to see the worms or hold them in their hands. Like you teach it to kids and you teach it to teenagers and they're kind of like, oh yeah, worms, cool.
Having that volume of them in close proximity takes a little getting used to.
Michelle DiMattia lives with her husband and 2 children on Manhattan's Upper West Side. DiMattia and her neighbors set up a worm bin in the trash room of their apartment building.
We decided to do a bin in the trash room primarily because it was a means for the community to come together. Why not make that a collective, collaborative activity for the whole building rather than having it be an individual endeavor? Who wants to take this one?
Me.
Okay.
If no one's going to eat the leftover scraps of food, we put them in a bag and pop them in the freezer so they don't smell. And then when we have the chance, we bring them down to the composter. Here's another sample.
Terrific. Throw it on in there.
I love to see the worms wiggle. And I like how they make dirt out of old waste.
We can make that one the new.
They love digging. They love to mix the compost around. They're learning that garbage doesn't have to just be a landfill. Indoor composting is just a great way to minimize garbage in the building. We have about 30% less garbage waste in our house. And it's a great lesson for our kids to learn. If they grow up thinking that composting is the normal thing to do with your garbage, how much less waste would we have as a country?
Good garbage breaks down as it goes. That's why it smells bad to your nose. Bad garbage grows and grows and grows. Garbage is supposed to be compost.
This is Carlin Michelson for Time.com.